The political landscape is undeniably shifting, and at the heart of this turmoil lies the question of leadership. The recent exchange between Keir Starmer and Keir Starmer in the House of Commons was more than just another routine confrontation. It was a fierce clash over economic ideology, with profound implications for the future of the country. The debate showcased not only the political divide but the stark reality that the British public faces: rising uncertainty, unsustainable policies, and a government scrambling to patch together a semblance of stability while driving the nation deeper into economic turmoil. Make no mistake, the current trajectory of the Labour Party under Starmer is disastrous, and it's time the electorate recognises the dire consequences of his leadership. Starmer's defence of the triple lock, a policy that guarantees pensions rise in line with the highest of earnings, inflation, or 2.5%, is as misguided as it is detached from reality. He insists that under a Labour government, the triple lock will remain safe, despite widespread concerns over its sustainability. To hear him argue this point in Parliament, one would think the man was oblivious to the economic climate he is navigating. The fact that experts, including his own shadow chancellor, have labelled the policy unsustainable should be a red flag. Yet Starmer continues to cling to it like a lifeline. This blind defence reveals a fundamental flaw in his leadership: a refusal to confront the financial pressures that are strangling the country. The triple lock, once heralded as a progressive policy, now serves as a symbol of the Labour Party's failure to adapt to an evolving fiscal landscape. It is no longer a forward-thinking policy but a ticking time bomb set to explode in the face of working-class families who are already struggling under the weight of rising costs and stagnant wages. Starmer's insistence on preserving it demonstrates his inability to make tough decisions, something every successful leader must do. By stubbornly clinging to this policy, Starmer is pandering to a demographic that, while important, cannot be the sole focus of a modern, fiscally responsible government. Moreover, Starmer's retort to Badenoch's criticism of the proposed Labour jobs tax exposes another glaring flaw in his economic thinking. By introducing a jobs tax, Labour is effectively penalising businesses at the worst possible time. Starmer's response that the Conservative government is responsible for the mess and that Labour is simply cleaning up is as lazy as it is inaccurate. It's a familiar refrain from the opposition, but it holds little water. The Prime Minister, though flawed in his approach, is not the sole architect of the current financial challenges. Starmer himself has offered no viable solutions beyond tax hikes and spending increases that will only exacerbate the problem. The truth is that Labour's proposed policies are akin to throwing a bucket of water on a raging fire. The jobs tax, which Starmer seems to champion, will hurt businesses, and in turn, the very people he claims to represent, the working class. The tax burden on businesses will either be passed on to workers through lower wages or higher prices, or businesses will simply downsize, leaving many without jobs. The Labour leader's failure to address this reality is both a sign of his political naivete and his unwillingness to take responsibility for his party's disastrous economic proposals. Then there's the issue of trust. Starmer's handling of the economy is a betrayal of the working class. He speaks of stability and security while pushing policies that will only bring greater instability. The jobs tax, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, will cost families thousands of pounds. Starmer's claim that this tax will not be passed on to workers is a blatant lie, one that exposes his contempt for the intelligence of the electorate. The British people are not stupid. They can see through the smoke and mirrors of Starmer's promises. When a man who claims to be leading the Labour Party cannot even acknowledge the simple fact that his economic proposals will hurt the very people he seeks to protect, it's clear that his leadership is not only ineffective but dangerously out of touch. Keir Starmer was right to challenge Starmer's economic record, particularly when she pointed out the inconsistency in his positions. During the last election, Starmer promised that he would not raise taxes on working people. Yet, here he is, endorsing policies that will undoubtedly lead to tax hikes for ordinary workers. This inconsistency is more than just an embarrassment, it's an indictment of Starmer's leadership. How can anyone trust a man who says one thing and does another? How can the British public believe that a Labour government under Starmer would bring the stability and prosperity it so desperately needs? The reality is that Starmer's Labour Party is a rudderless ship, drifting aimlessly in a sea of economic uncertainty. The policies he champions are unsustainable, his leadership is uninspiring, and his ability to take bold action is non-existent. The party, once the champion of the working class, is now simply a vessel for hollow promises and half-baked solutions that will only make the country's problems worse. In the face of these challenges, the British public must demand more from their leaders. They must demand honesty, responsibility, and a vision for the future that is both sustainable and realistic. Starmer's Labour Party offers none of these things. If Britain is to overcome the economic challenges it faces, it must look elsewhere for leadership. Leadership that is prepared to make difficult decisions and put the country's interests ahead of political expediency. It's time to stop tolerating the failures of Labour and demand a government that will truly serve the people, not just the political elite.